Hi guys, welcome back to Ana Dialogue, the dialogue on analog music reproduction. In this episode, we're gonna go through some very cool tips, tricks, hacks to get the best from your cassette, whether it is playback or recording. You ready? Let's go. Okay, so we're gonna go through 13 aspects. There's so many. A few are a little more popular, other a little unknown, I think. So I hope it's a good mix for everyone. I'm not gonna go in detail on how to make a recording on a cassette. That is something that maybe I will do, but there are dozens of videos out there. So before we start, I do want to say one thing, because first of all, cassettes, as we all know, are coming back. Take a look at this video. Here are the top reasons why they're coming back and why you should try to listen to them and use them. Apart from that, it is good to know that cassettes are very versatile. They're very easy and have multiple functions. For example, if you are in music, a lot of productions, artistic and especially electronic music productions, are focusing on this because that analog touch just makes everything more round and more pleasant, especially with that hard, strong, and very sharp beats of electronic music. That's why. Plus, it also gives a lot of instruments because, for example, we have to go out of the classic recording route of doing 2 tracks on one side and 2 tracks on the other. No need. You can just find a Tascam or there are other models that can record all 4 tracks at once. Jeff Grier, one of my friends, one of my subscribers, he just got an excellent contract with a record label. He made his own records. He just started out doing these recordings on his 4-track machine. Very easy. And you can do dubs. You can record something and then add another instrument, just like you have a reel-to-reel machine with multiple tracks. So already that is fantastic. Plus, you can also find a proper deck that can go beyond the normal speed, incrementing dramatically the frequency response and also a little bit of the dynamic range. So these aspects must be considered because cassette, when you get high-quality cassettes, high-quality decks, high-quality sources, bundled all together, they are amazing. If you don't try, you don't believe. That's for sure. And I'm talking from the perspective that when I was using cassettes in the 80s and 90s, when I was a baby, when I was a young kid, and I thought it was crapola until CDs came out along and things like that. Only afterwards I understood the full potential, because finally I could get high quality stuff. And you can find it at a, we could say, decent price. Even now it's very trendy on eBay and other places like that. Okay, let's dive in now. Okay, point number 1, fundamental, the cassettes themselves. As you have probably seen, first of all, there are dozens and dozens of productions of new releases. Underground cultures. There's so many pre-recorded cassettes that are being made now. It's amazing. It's fantastic. That's why you're probably watching this video, for cassette culture, because you want to start and listen to them. Maybe you want to produce them. So there are a few aspects that you need to know beyond the normal things of equalization, bias, those things. I've already talked about this in other videos. So if you want to go in my playlist, the tape playlist, here's a link. You can find a lot of stuff on there. Today we're going to take a look at different things, as I said. So, for example, yes, we do have fresh, newly made cassettes, but we only have the lower quality, the number 1, the type 1 cassettes. So, for example, I'm sure you're familiar with something like this. This is present in a lot of places, in a lot of shops, online and physical in the US, and not only, but also something maybe a little better, like the new Fox from Recording the Masters. This is a decent quality cassette, type 1, absolutely. But if you really want to take full potential of cassettes, you really need to go new old stock NOS. So just to give you an idea, try to look for something like this. I especially love the Japanese Sony. Like, for example, you don't have to get new old stock newly sealed. Not necessarily. For example, I got these Type 3 cassettes. Yes, they do exist. The ferrochrome. And these are amazing. Excellent sound. Type 3 is a good sounding cassette. It's very rare. And it was recorded. No problem. If you don't want to get a pristine, which is going to obviously be better, you can get, if you find in eBay, already recorded, home recorded, not pre-recorded, home recorded cassettes from other people. Like in this case, I think you can see it. And just go over it. And if you have any problems, you just have to, if they popped away the notches to protect the recording, you just put a piece of tape here, scotch tape, and you're good to go. You can record it on top of it again and again. That's the magic of cassettes. Oh yes, baby. Other great stuff, as you can imagine. Metal cassettes, fantastic. I'm just in love with TDK, Maxell, Sony. These are the best of the best. But also something simple like this, the basic Sony ones, Type 1s. They're already going to be better than the other kind, the currently produced Type 1, in my opinion. Otherwise, even Chrome cassettes Type 2, which are already going to be better. Something very basic like these ones that were produced during the 90s, the CDing by TDK. This is already very, very good. Absolutely. And we had fantastic things like the SAX by TDK. When you find these squarish type of cases, a little old, but very, very good. Or the European kinds, the BASF True Chrome. This is a True Chrome Type 2 cassette. As we know, the Japanese are doped with cobalt. See all these types? These are very high quality from Sony. And not only, there are dozens of brands. Okay, sorry for the long introduction, but this was important. Now let's proceed with point number 2. Okay, point number 2. If you have a few decks, if you're already at that point, or even just one deck, remember to use them. Yes, every once in a while, at least I would say once a week, once every 2 weeks, try to use them. Because the less you use them, the less they're going to work properly. The capacitors are going to start dying, and everything is just not going to work properly. If it's up and going every once in a while, you're keeping everything nice and elastic, the belts, lubricated, the different parts, it's just a good idea to do so. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, point number 3. Something that may seem not important, but it does make a difference at the end of the day. Try to use Japanese formulas, which are the best, at least in my opinion, but not only, with Japanese decks, cassette decks, okay? Because the cassette decks are calibrated for this type of oxide, for this type of compound, for this type of metal particles, whatever it is. And especially Type 2, because as I said before, it does not have chrome. It has cobalt mainly inside. So that's why Japanese decks, which are usually considered the best, if you want a deck, just go hit the 80s, especially the second half of the 80s. You're good to go. 3 head, you're set. That's something fantastic. Otherwise, you can get something more European, which has set the foundation for a lot of recordings. This is also absolutely very, very good. But the Japanese decks are not going to work perfectly with this formula. That's why it's maybe better to get a European deck, a German deck or something like that, like a Revox or something like that, a Studer. So bear that in mind. Let's proceed. Point number 4. Everyone is saying it, but I think it's worth mentioning it. Clean your heads. You have to clean them every once in a while, especially if you're not using very fresh tape. There's going to be a little bit of residue on the heads, the recording and also the erasing head. I use usually, or this one, the Nagaoka, which is pretty good, the AM804, which also have some cotton swabs. If you find the deer, the doe skin, that's even better, obviously, because the cotton swabs always leave a little bit of traces, a little bit of dust or things like that. I hate that, but they're cheap. So I just use a lot of them until I remove everything. But if you have the money, try to get something better, or even something like this from Magnetics. In any case, if you don't want to spend, no need of this fancy stuff, absolutely just buy isopropyl alcohol, which it evaporates very quickly, and that's why they use that. Let's proceed. Point number 5, demagnetization. Yes, every once in a while, according to how much tape, cassettes you're listening, you're recording, you're using your deck, you have to demagnetize because magnetization builds up on the heads. So it's a good idea to clean them and demagnetize them. I did an entire video on that, also for reel to reel. Take a look. Here's the link. I'm not going to say anything more. It's all there. Let's proceed. Point number 6. Again, this is something I always say in my videos. Try to buy a serviced deck. If it's not serviced, you have to automatically have in mind to bring it to service to a lab. It is not that expensive as you may think. There are a lot of tutorials if you just need to change the belts. Usually that's the problem. On Walkmans, a little more difficult, or decks. Lots of tutorials, even for specific models. Try that, no problem. But in any case, it's a good idea because it's not only belts. It's recapping, the so-called overhaul, where that means you're going to change all the different capacitors, plus calibrate the machine itself, the wow and flutter, the speed. You do need that. And once it's done, you can use it for good, or at least for a very, very, very long time. Trust me. Let's proceed. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you find that your deck is chewing cassettes, that's not the problem of a deck. It's not the problem of the cassette, 90%. It's usually the pinch roller, okay? That little rubber part of the transport that it's probably worn out, that it's probably sticky, it's having problems, and that's why sometimes it gets chewed up. Very easy. You just have to clean that. You should use a rubber rejuvenator, but a lot of people just use isopropyl alcohol, just a little bit, not too much, and you're good to go, and that should be solved. Let's proceed. Point number 7. Don't limit yourself, obviously, to CD quality, to vinyl records, or your own music. Use, and this is my top, really, suggestion, recommendation, use extremely high resolution digital music from streaming services or your SA CDs or DVD audios, whatever you have in the home or online. Put it on those cassettes because the sound is going to be better. Better? Guido, what are you saying? It can't be better. Yes, it can. Obviously, you're not adding info, but you're transforming it. You're adding some distortion, which is just going to make everything more euphonic. Just better. Try it. You won't regret it. I made a dedicated video also on this topic. Here's a link. Let's proceed. Okay, point number 8. This is a little more techie. Be careful of the voltage of the input that you're using from the gear you're using in your machine. Why I think this is important? Because I had a lot of problems with all my decks. Only a few were capable of regulating automatically by themselves. Otherwise, I had to sell my RME DAC because it had such a strong output that unfortunately it could not deal with other decks I had. The output was so strong. So always check the output. It does not have to be too strong. In fact, do not use balance connections or things like that. No. Always the single-ended. Plus check the specs of the deck and check the specs of the output of your machine, whatever, regardless, whatever it is. A preamp, I hope you're not going to use a headphone amplifier. The phone preamp with its external output, anything, I mean, even a phone, you just have to check those specs in order to have a proper combination, because otherwise it's going to distort a lot. Plus, if you're using a preamplifier, it's good to have a fixed volume or even a computer, because, for example, I use Audio Nirvana. Audirvana has, and it's very useful, its own volume control, but that's going to increase distortion along the line because it's going to increase also the voltage, or at least the input is going to be so strong that the cassette, or in some cases the deck, is not going to be capable of handling that signal, and the recording is going to be terrible, harsh. So be careful of all these aspects, okay? Let's proceed. Point number 9. If you have a quality deck, chances are that you have an output knob, which is very good. Okay, the tip is never put the output knob all the way down, all the way on the right. Always leave a little bit of space. Like, for example, if we have, I don't know, 6 p.m., put it around 4, okay? Or 5, something like that. A little before the final turn of the knob. It's always better. You have less distortion, everything is going to be clearer, and the frequency response is going to be flat. Let's proceed. Point number 10, noise reduction. Now this is a matter of taste, in my opinion, but not only. I highly recommend to use it only with Type 1 cassettes. Type 2 and especially Type 4 really don't need it. But if you hate hiss, try, absolutely, but you don't need it. Because in any case, even though the recordings are going to gain and increase their dynamics, the dynamic range, you are going to squish a little bit the spectrum, squish a little bit the sound. There's going to be less air, less sound stage. So it is a filter somehow. So at that point, you have to remember that. You decide. That's my take on it. Let's proceed. Point number 11. If you have a cassette, a tape, that it's not playing correctly, that it's even squeaking, that it's just simply stuck, there is a solution. I made a dedicated video. A lot of people hated me for it, but I have demonstrated that this is a common practice, a standard procedure for reel-to-reel, but also cassettes. Yes, Nakamichi does it. So I put all a series of articles in a specific video. Here is a link where there's a full tutorial to how to re-lube your cassettes. Yes, because tape in the binder does have some lubricant. And if it completely runs out, you're going to have a lot of issues until you're going to throw everything out. But if you add just a little bit in the proper way, check that video how, things are going to be top notch. And in fact, in the comments, everyone that tried it said, "Thank you, Guido. Oh my God, you saved my life." Let's proceed. Point number 12. This is probably banal and trite, but I like to say it. If you have recorded a tape, your cassette, on a specific deck, it's common practice, common knowledge to use that deck also for playback. Not every time, not every way, not in every case, but usually that's the way to go. In fact, true famous recorders that have their whole library full of recordings had their specific deck calibrated for a specific type of cassette. Well, that's a little extreme, but you can do that, absolutely. You need a tech to do that or some skills. In any case, that is the way to go to have the best of the best, because the way it records, the way it reproduces the sound is aligned to that recording you made with that deck. So why not use it? Let's proceed. Last recommendation, actually it's a buying recommendation. If you can, stretch that extra $1 or euro and try to get a deck that has automatic, or even better, manual calibration. That will bring you immediately at another level because it's squeezing out the best of the best from your cassette. Obviously, this is for recording. For playback, there are some decks that can calibrate themselves, like the Dragon, but I mean, that's something at another level. We're talking about simple, because there are simple decks that don't cost an arm and a leg that do this, that do calibrate even automatically. And at that point, your recordings are going to be toppy. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And with the sound of the bells, I'm saying goodbye. And remember, obviously, especially in this video, music was born analog. Well, guys, if you're enjoying my videos and you're enjoying my channel, please consider to subscribe by clicking the black and white logo here below.
Also, don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll never miss an episode and you will become a true member of the analog community.